Well, it can be a daunting task to explain the COVID-19 pandemic to children without instilling fear. A new book developed by and for children hopes to help families. It's been compiled by more than 50 humanitarian organizations, including the World Health Organization, Unicef and the Red Cross, as well as the Red Crescent. Now, the main character, who is Ario, guides children on how to protect themselves, their families and friends from the coronavirus. My hero is you, how kids can fight COVID-19. Also teaches children how to manage difficult emotions. But to discuss this, we're joined by Alison Brunier from the World Health Organization from Geneva. Alison, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this is quite fascinating, where for the first time we're seeing, children sort of like at the center, seen as heroes and, being taught on how they can, of course, be heroes in their own right amidst this coronavirus. And we're seeing these visuals through this book and this character, Ario. Just tell us a bit more about it.
Growth continues to underperform.
Okay. Very much for inviting me. As you've said, this book has been a project of over 50 humanitarian organisations, including the World Health Organization, Unicef, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and many, many others, who work on the ground providing mental health and psychosocial support to people who are living through humanitarian emergencies such as COVID-19. And they're very well aware of the impact that such huge changes on children's lives can have on them, which was where the initial idea for this book came. So a couple of weeks ago, just a few weeks ago, in fact, this group of organisations got together, worked with a writer and an illustrator to produce this book. More than 1,700 parents, teachers, caregivers and children were asked to provide input to the book so that it could be as useful to children around the world as possible.
Alison, the contexts are quite, wide-ranging in terms of the contexts in which children are having this COVID-19 phenomenon explained to them. With the benefit of the experts that you consulted before putting together this book and this character, Ario, what are some of the key considerations that come forward in as far as explaining it at a level that children can understand?
Well, as you say, one of the important things about this book is it's written in a way that's appropriate for 6 to 11-year-olds, and we do encourage parents and caregivers and teachers to read with their children rather than to leave them with the book on their own, because it can evoke a number of emotions that are quite difficult to digest and to manage. So some of the key things that come out in the book are, one, how children can protect themselves, and these are the key protection measures that adults also we're asking to observe. Things like making sure you wash your hands very regularly, you have physical distancing, and also that you cough into your elbow. But there are also other things to help keep mentally healthy, and this is appropriate for both children as well as adults. Keeping in regular contact with friends and family, trying to keep doing things that you usually enjoy, and also taking time out to think about some things that make you happy, things that are positive, to help you remove yourself, if you like, from some of the changes in your lives, in the children's lives, that can be quite difficult to manage.
Yeah, and I've been curious to know, how would you advise then, Alison, to explain the COVID-19 pandemic to children without necessarily instilling fear in them? Because even amongst parents or rather elders, this is quite a confusing time. There are comments or rather just expressions made by people around the world where they would say, oh, I feel like I'm living in a bad movie. I feel like this is a nightmare. I've never experienced something like this. This is quite scary. We don't know what the future holds. So if adults are feeling this way, how do they then explain what is going on to their children without necessarily instilling that anxiety and fear?
And that's a very important point that you've just made. Children obviously pick up very quickly on adults' anxiety. This book is really a vehicle for them to remove themselves a little bit from what children might be seeing on the news every day, hearing on the radio, and put themselves into an environment that's a little bit calmer, can be more reassuring, through storytelling, through the imagery, talk about what children can do. It's very important to be honest. but also to reassure what children can do, why the changes are necessary, and think beyond the outbreak as well, that eventually children will go back to their normal lives. And so to instill a feeling of reassurance, if you like, going forward.
What's the balance, Alison, between teaching about COVID-19, teaching children about COVID-19, and being interactive and allowing children to engage with the content of the book in a fun way?
Engagement is very important, and as you say, I mean, this is an opportunity for children to express their fears as well, express their anxieties, and for parents to respond to them honestly. I wouldn't call it a fun read at all, but it's putting children into the context of what they're going through, and this is children all over the world, and helping them understand some of the changes in their everyday lives.
All right, thank you for that, Alison Brunier, joining us from the World Health Organization in Geneva. Difficult times having to explain to children what the virus really is about. I mean, you know, children are out of school, and having to explain that, you know, how come we don't go to school these days can be a bit daunting. So it's a good initiative to have that explained to
I mean, I know that the curriculum or the academic year just in the United States alone, particularly New York, had to be, you know, suspended for the rest of the year. So I can imagine how scary that is for those in their senior year, those in their final schooling year, and they don't know how exactly they'll maneuver this. But of course, these are trying times everywhere.